We found a ghost ship from the 1940s. The crew was still on board. As of 2026, there are estimated to be hundreds of ghost ships afloat in the worldwide ocean. That number is relatively small compared to the millions of lost vessels over the past couple of millennia. The ghost ship with the longest known record afloat lasted 38 years. Seems short, right? Ships break down over time. They sink. At least they're supposed to. The ship my crew found shouldn't have existed. It should have been lying on the ocean floor, a heap of decaying parts forgotten by time. But it's not. As impossible as it is, it's not. I won't tell you her name. Just typing it out gives me chills. When my first mate uttered it to me, I thought he was lying. I'd heard stories of the ship before. It was infamous. I had to see it for myself. I joined him on the deck in the dead of the night. True to his word, a ship was inching towards us. She was a hulking behemoth, her tired parts sending creaks and groans through the air like rustic cries. In the moonlight, I saw it. Her name. It was faded, but I could still make out those letters clear as day. It was her, the ship of legend. My eyes grew wide. This wasn't real. It couldn't be real. But I wasn't the only one who had seen it. Captain, Jacob whispered, "What should we do?" I stayed silent, watching the mysterious ship run its course. It was close, so close. I racked my brain. I wasn't trained for this. A ship from the 1940s. Surely the crew members were dead. They had to be. There was no reason to think otherwise. What I did next was the single stupidest decision of my entire life. "Jacobs," I said, "have Hammond radio this in, then give the command to pull up beside her. Tell him to get as close as he can." Jacob's face was pale in the moonlight. But, Captain, that's an order." Jacob stared at me for a moment. Then, without another word, he fulfilled his duty. Minutes later, Jacobs and I were standing at the bow. We were facing the opposing ship at an angle, so close that I could jump aboard if I so pleased. "Captain, this is reckless. You know it is. This is a major safety violation," Jacob said. "What are you even planning to do?" I gave Jacobs a wink. "This," I said before leaping overboard. I landed on the ghost ship's deck with a crash. Jacobs looked like he was about to throw up. I groaned. That was gonna leave a bruise. I made an attempt to pick myself back up. "Well, boy, what are you gonna..." Jacobs landed on the deck beside me. He held his knee and winced. "Screw you for this, sir. Seriously. Eat crap." I grinned. "Oh, don't give me that. Curiosity was getting at you too. I could see it." He stood with some effort. "You got me there." Jacobs and I traveled across the deck. Each creak from the old ship was enough to have me checking over my shoulder. By the time we reached the command deck, where the ship was controlled, I was starting to second guess my decision to board. The door was slightly ajar, and the room inside was trashed. Papers had been strewn about, controls had been shattered, but that wasn't what sent a chill down my spine. The entire room was caked in dried blood. A rustic brown coated the main control panel. It must have been decades since this stuff had been spilled. I instantly knew what it was. Jacobs tugged my sleeve. "Captain, we should go." "No, I want to know what happened here." "Look around. Something is seriously wrong. There's no bodies and the door was left open. Plus, do you see any signs of water damage?" "I don't. Please, let's just go back." "Go back if you want. I won't be satisfied until I have a look below deck." Jacob sighed. "I was afraid you'd say that." "Fine," he replied, wind whistling through the open door. A chill racked his body. "A quick look around, then we leave." I nodded. A quick look around, then we leave. Jacobs and I soon found ourselves standing before the hatch that led to the lower decks. We shared a glance, then we both grabbed hold of the rusted handles. After an immense amount of effort, we managed to open it. A musty smell emanated from within the depths of the ship once the hatch was open. I crinkled my nose. "Last chance, Captain. Want to turn back?" I sighed. "Nope, ladies first," I said, extending a hand. Jacobs frowned. "I forgot my flashlight." I thrust one into his hand. "I brought two." Jacobs pursed his lips and looked at the cavernous pit, then looked back at me. He shook his head before beginning the descent. "Where are we?" Jacobs asked. "The berthing deck," I said, shining my light around the corridor. Jacobs looked at me like I'd grown a second head. "The deck where the soldiers sleep? Is that better?" "Yeah, now lead the way, O fearless captain. I am but a follower on your journey through the bowels of the beast." I shot him a glare. "Loser." Jacobs and I continued down the desolate hallway until we found the sailors' quarters. I peeked into the first room we came across. My heart nearly stopped in my chest. The room contained 3 bunks. The beds all had blankets on them, and what appeared to be something underneath. I checked the following room. Same ordeal. I cleared room after room. Jacobs hot at my heels until we reached the end of the sailors' quarters. Sailors' quarters. Captain, are they all... My face was pale. I felt like I'd seen a ghost. And maybe I had. Dozens of them. Yeah, I said. They're dead, all of them. Jacob shuddered. I shook my head. The real question is, what killed them? Captain, I don't know if I want to find out. No, we have to find out. We owe it to these men to find out. Jacobs didn't respond. He just nodded. I knew what had to be done, but that didn't make it any easier. I entered the closest room, flashlight aimed at the bottom bunk. The beam landed on the lump beneath the blanket. I could hear the blood pounding in my ears as I reached for it. When I peeled back that thin fabric, I could have died right then and there. There was a man lying in the bed, not a pile of bones or ash like there should have been. A young man, blonde hair, neatly combed, mouth set into a frown. His most discernible feature was a knife jutting from his eye. His other eye, glassy and blue, was open, unseeing. I grew frantic. This wasn't possible. These bodies were over 80 years old. They should have been skeletons by now. I checked the man in the middle bunk. Same thing. Brown hair, smooth, pale skin, jagged slit across his throat. The top bunk bore the same results. Pristine body, lethal injury. I pushed past Jacobs, who stood perplexed in the doorway. Captain, what is it? What did you see? No, this isn't right. This can't be right. I rushed to a room further down the hall. The same thing. 3 full beds, 3 bodies, perfectly preserved. Jacobs emerged from the adjacent room, his face void of color. Captain, what the heck is going on here? I felt lightheaded. I gripped the doorframe for support. This was a mistake. We need to leave. Suddenly, from the room behind me, I heard something that made my blood turn to ice, rustling. I turned. My worst fear came to fruition. The man in the middle bunk was sitting upright. He grabbed the handle of the knife embedded in his neck and slowly and methodically pulled it out. Blood gushed from the wound, soaking his uniform, but he never flinched. He stared at me the whole time, his icy dead eyes set on mine. I stood frozen as the knife clattered to the floor. The man swung his feet over to the side of the bed. Jacobs shook my arm. Captain, there. Jacobs didn't need to finish his statement. One by one, each of the men began to jostle. That got me moving. I gave Jacobs a hard shove in the back. Go, now! He took off into a dead sprint. I followed closely behind him. The men began to shamble towards us. Tall, muscular, short, thin. Didn't matter. They closed in on us like flies in a bug zapper. Each shared the same 2 features. A mortal wound and empty, soulless eyes. Eyes that didn't contain a shred of emotion, a shred of life. Jacobs and I raced down the corridor, our feet making hollow thuds against the deck. The horror was spilling out into the hallway by the time we got to the ladder. Jacobs reached for it, then he stood still with a hand on our arm. It's as if he's been placed under a spell. I punched him in the arm. Go! They're getting closer! That spurred him into action. Jacobs hoisted himself up the ladder and through the open hatch. They were close. So close. Too close. The moment I had the chance, I beelined up the ladder behind him. I was almost there. My hands were outside the hatch. And then I felt a tug. I looked down to find skeletal hands gripping tight to my ankles. It yanked hard. Suddenly, the men's flesh withered away before me. Their skin melted, blood cascading down their emaciated frames. Only their eyes remained untouched. I desperately kicked at the hand holding on to me. The fingers seared across my flesh as they skidded back into the depths of the ship, leaving raw, jagged cuts in their wake. I scrambled the rest of the way up the ladder, white-hot pain radiating through me. Jacob slammed the hatch closed. The second I was through, the pair of us sprinted across the deck, back to where our ship sat waiting. Jacobs leapt across. He landed hard, but he was safe. I went next. I tried to ignore the pain in my ankle, relying on adrenaline to carry me through. I jumped, and I barely made it. My legs, they hung off the edge. I looked down. Dozens and dozens of feet below, black waves lapped at the ship. Jacobs grabbed my hand. He hoisted me onto the deck. One of our crew, a deckhand named Stark, ran up to us. Captain, Officer Jacobs, are you okay? I don't know about okay, but I need you to do something for me. You tell the crew to get us back on course now. But sir, the other ship. Don't make me tell you again. Stark didn't reply. He simply nodded and disappeared. Moments later, we were off. I didn't feel safe until we were moving again. I gave the ghost ship one last look as we made our escape. I instantly regretted it. Dozens of figures stared back at me. Their skeletal faces remained stoic and unmoving. But those eyes, those awful dead eyes followed me as we began to disappear from view. I made my crew swear up and down to never share the events of that night. Each of them claimed they never would. Jacobs and I met in his quarters later that evening. Jacobs, I'm sorry. I don't know what I was thinking. We never should have boarded that ship. We never should have explored below deck. I should have just listened to you from the start. Jacobs waited for me to finish. Captain, I don't blame you. I felt the pull. I was the one who saw it first. The ship came for me. I know it. I stopped my anxious pacing and looked at him. You're not making any sense, boy. Don't tell me your mind's left you now. Jacob looks at me dead in the eyes. Alan, I need you to listen to me. I am not insane. You saw the same things I did. I nodded. I couldn't deny it, that I did, but you said the ship came for you. What do you mean by that? Jacobs leaned forward and stared at the wall. Captain, that ship wanted me to find it. It wouldn't have appeared if I wasn't on board this vessel. I'm sure of it. The sailors... I waited for him to continue. Jacobs met my gaze. One of the men on board of that ship was my great-grandfather. I looked at him, mouth agape. How do you know? I've seen pictures. It was him. I'm sure of it. I didn't know how to respond. Silence filled the room. That was the last time I spoke to Jacobs. He avoided me until we made landfall and quit his job soon thereafter. I never saw him again. If any of my crew had told this tale, I haven't heard a peep. As far as I know, no investigation into the missing ship was ever carried out. Jacobs and my transgressions were never discovered. There have been no reported sightings of the ghost ship we encountered. Not since the night it vanished in 1941. For all I know, it could be out there to this day, roaming the high seas, searching for a new sailor to join its ranks.